Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is How is Reality Containing Itself Through Imagination? Most human beings identify with a nation, and when we look at what a nation has a physical component, which is the land, the boundaries, the way it is contained, and it also has the ideological value that there are things that have value just by being there or being seen in some way. Similar to how nations have an abstract value, your imagination, which is the nation of all the known and unknown images, that nation is also containing the objective meaning. You know, objective reality is like juice. Objective reality is like juice. It's poured into subjective reality to contain it, like a cup of coffee where the coffee's poured in, and it's vice versa. That subjective reality is poured into the objective. That we require bodies before we can wonder if we're minds, and we require the unknownness of the mind before we can be certain that we're bodies. And really the mysteries stand because there's gaps in space and time. There is mysteries moving like winds on this planet. Excuse me. You know, we have incognito mode on our web browsers, but there is a word called terra incognita, the phrase. Terra incognita is as if the hidden earth, the uncharted territory of life. There's times that you can look at the world and it has its explanation, the meaning of life. It is physically happening. It's right there. But only in moments in life where we can go either a bit faster or a bit slower than the world, we notice it differently. The question of how reality is being contained and the value of conscious reasoning. I feel that we are most immediately existing in a form beyond the free will. Right now, as I'm sitting here, I have a free will to choose these words. I have a freedom to move, but I do not have a freedom of what is existing. That existence had made its plans before I was ever born. That the existential program has been written. Existence is too unique. That means a question every existential being that has had access to conscious experience has asked: why am I here? One of the most fascinating questions of my lifetime, where the answer is never clear. The answer is like a potential, you know? The meaning of life is like a hope, you know? It's either an indirect ideological hope or it is a direct silent experience. One of my favorite songs is from a very not that popular, but unique artist named Lucas, Luqus, and he has a song. This man has a song called "We're in the Dark," you know, and it's like these very beautiful female vocals that suddenly say "We're in the dark," and the song has this sort of a sudden avalanche into this very heavy bass. But the song was "We're in the dark. We're in the dark." And when we forget that, we stop exploring. When we forget we're in the dark, we stop caring for what lights are on. We stop caring for civilization's value. You see, there's so many kinds of human beings. I remember reading a poem from a person who, I don't remember the guy's name, but the poem was from a time where there was no light bulbs, where the person would be used to coming home and their family was poor, so they didn't have candles. So this person, anytime the sun's natural light would go out, they would have to be content with the darkness. You see, what you have, you can use as justification in many points of life, you know. Somebody could come and tell you, hey man, why are you alive? And you could just use that as a sort of, you know, it's like anything can be given as a reason if the explanatory potential and power is there. You see, right now we're under the impression that things are separate. So there's this huge space of wanting to connect everything to everything. And even Einstein said genius is drawing a bridge between two realms that had nothing to do with one another, you know. It is the eyes that are breathing a hidden journey. And do you know how many people are broken by the silence, but they never see it? Silence is the god of language. Stillness is the god of movement. And in the vast void, manifestation rises. We are here for a little while, yet if we were truly rational creatures upon the recognition of our mortality, why the inefficiency? Why the scent of a civilization that doesn't care? You know, they say there are dark nights of the soul. No such thing, but there are dark nights of the mind. What is known as soul? What is known as attention hovering in a field-like way through organic phenomena? You know, a hard problem in consciousness is, why is it that, in a very grounded way of course, why is it that the human being is conscious of certain processes uh, of living and not conscious of certain processes? That means right now we're not aware of, for example, You know, it's like on a very small level, like a dust particle doesn't make your shoulder feel heavy, you know, but it does have an influence. There is an unavoidable noticing that will go on in life, where the person will have to process how much they have been a participant in this world and how much they have driven through it. You see, when you care for something, you have opened up to it. The kingdoms of your past have accepted entrance, have granted access. But there's moments where the kingdoms of our past, like fallen kings, shout. You know, there's been times where I wished my hand could have been a bit gentler. My voice would have been a bit more calmer. You know, there is always a moment in life where the person feels out of control. And then suddenly there comes a moment where there is control. If we took a Shintoism perspective where they perceive all matter as a highway for souls, it is as if a person's mind is a world inside a world. And your attention is as if how much God has chosen to be conscious of itself. I heard a statement from Alan Watts that was phenomenal. And it revealed to me the obsession of Western civilization, and not just only Western civilization, but the modern world with the conscious waking state. It's as if you're given three gifts, but you open only one of them. One gift is the conscious waking state. Everybody opens this gift, whether you like it or not. You don't really have a choice. It's like a gift given, and you got to open it in front of the person who gave you the gift. You know. But then there's states which are dream states, states of pure animate mystery. The conscious waking state is really, I can say, like the body's romance with the unknown. The dream state is the mind's romance with the unknown. The deep sleep state is how the soul knows itself before it was. The concept of creation, there was a moment it did not exist. Do you know the verb creation could be a fallacy? It could be a human evaluation. You know, that means it's the difference between an ant being able to perceive the cosmos from the database of the anthill or from the database of the human being. Imagine an ant could talk to a human being and a human being explained astrophysics to that ant. And that ant went back to all the other ants and explained astrophysics to all the ants. And all the ants were like, whoa, 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 but they could not do anything because the dimensional gap between between moved and mover is different. When I feel moved by the world, I tend to be sight before I am a person, before I identify with the content of my sight, you know? But when I identify with the content of my sight, then there is nothing left to hear the howls of the unknown and march into the glorious battlefield of time, you know? So, guys, Charles in the chat section. By the way, Charles, thanks for engaging the comment section, man. You're one of the most active viewers on this channel. Feel free to join the Discord after the session. Charles says so many acts of throwing things away leads to a throwaway mentality. No, no, no. It's not just that. There's first of all, no human being can get stuck in a Here's the thing. Time is throwing matter away in space. Time is breaking us. I don't know if people notice. Time has immortality. The afterlife, you know what it is? Like religion is like a warranty, you know? This I'm not saying this to be rude, but I'm saying it as just as on a design level, ideological level. It's as if from if like like when you buy something and it has a warranty, it's as if regardless of if the manifestation breaks in the monotheistic tradition and lens, they see it as if there is no reincarnation, there is no suddenly the being's eternal. In the monotheistic tradition, it's very interesting, guys. They see it as the person dies once, then is resurrected and is judged. Do you see? It's as if like this life is, we are just the phoenix. Imagination needs reality to exist. Reality needs imagination to be animate, to experience. Reality needs imagination to experience. Imagination needs reality to exist. Perfect. That sentence is geometrical perfection. That sentence is it. That we are imagination. What is its utility? I mean, the utility of reality is obvious. It's the landscape. But what is the utility of the imagination? Why has, I mean, I understand evolution. You know, I'm telling you, anybody who puts their palms on the ground will very quickly realize that their biology is built as an animal. You see, I'm not sitting here. There's a metaphysics that ignores physics, that just jumps to the metaphysics, and then there's a metaphysics that is like the older brother of physics. There's a metaphysics that's the younger brother of physics, and then there's a metaphysics that's older brother of physics. The older brother sees things the younger doesn't. The younger brother of physics sees things that physics doesn't see. And so, guys, I'm getting excited. This is good. I think we're getting close to uh, uh, a gold mine in the inner realms. As light leaves the room and night begins to speak in the glow of the moon, the plans of day are being made. Ah, interesting. Charles says inner imagination, outer perception are inseparable. Yeah. I mean, of course, keep in mind, Charles, when I speak, when I give these talks, guys, whoever's listening, I am not linearly speaking. I'm speaking as a painter that draws different parts of the canvas rather than just start from one part and never take the brush off and just draw one thing, you know? Life is about angles of perception, and sometimes these angles are all centered around one point of energetic, conscious, existential presence. You know, that means my presence, it cannot be judged by no man. It can't even be judged by the earth. But my personality has been judged. It has been shackled to dishonor. It has been exiled to shame. It has been banished by embarrassment. You know. And I could tell you, but that's just the personality. That's just the approach. That's just the angle. The center of the circle doesn't matter what degree you look at it. It is the center. Now, I'm not saying man is the center of his world, but behind your eyes, you are. Behind your eyes, your existence is the point, and experience is all the degrees around this point. And we can say this physical realm is like I will honestly grant this plane of existence perpendicular meaning, because it seems to be the intersection, more like a vertical and horizontal dimension. You see, that's the thing, Charles. You were talking about imagination and perception being inseparable, inner imagination and outer perception, but you don't realize inner imagination is perception before perception. And that central point is the key. That means I want you to think that every person alive, every day they wake up, every moment they endure through, it's like a spiral, but it's a spiral that is the center of it never moves. Yeah, it's like pi. Yeah, I don't know who said that. Dan? Dan in the chat section. Yeah. It's a spiral. Yeah. So as a spiral, there is the center doesn't change, the spiral endlessly expands. And the point about a spiral is that if the notion of reincarnation was seen as a spiral, every lifetime has a common curvature. Without the central point of the sphere, what points are there to have meaning? You see, our eyes are travelers beyond form. We just don't know how to acknowledge it as a species. And we look at our past and they were like spirit, soul, spirit, soul, spirit, soul. And when we look at the future, it's like, atoms, atoms, simulation, atoms, personality simulated. So you see, when you see life as empty before full, you have failed before you can win. But when you see life full before empty, something in the cosmos, like a lightning strike, as if Thor suddenly found his hammer. Charles says, can we perceive what we cannot imagine? So Charles, I'll give you an option. I can answer this question metaphysically or physically. Which one would you like? Metaphysically, there's different angles to the story. Our minds are the attention is the epicenter of the inner realm. The outer realm, center of the universe, is not here. So in the outer realms, we're not at the center of the universe. I mean, like, we don't want to make Copernicus and Galileo shake in their graves, like. We're not the center of the universe, but behind our eyes, we have no choice, because we are like a container, and whatever is poured into it in the lifetime is the karma. Do you know, I thought about the notion of karma, and I'm like, there's endless things that can happen. Why these things? And then suddenly my life, every day waking up, it became as if no longer a search for an ideological system. It just became trying to see what the planet was saying through my eyes. You see, there is more than just matter here, because there is something that matters to matter that is unexplainable. That an object, through a temporary object, through a strange eternal urge, has continued so far. That means it's like, on some level, I think about immortality, like as a technological being in the future. Like, if we had an option to have our brains be immortal, like the brain in the GAT idea, I thought about it. Would that immortality be ethical? Would that not even ethical? I mean, ethical, nobody cares, but about a brain in a jar. But I'm telling you, our continuity as a species is a testament to some sort of immortality pattern in the psyche of this animal. And I think it's fear. I think fear is the mother of eternity. Because you can totally see the animal freaked out. It's like, I don't want to die, and just continuing on. The animal created reasons to exist. So all that we know actually from our universe is not its specific details, colors, dimensions. What we know Okay, Charles, to give you a metaphysical answer to your question in the chat section, and can we perceive what we cannot imagine? Let me tell you, yes, you can, but you cannot perceive through your eyes. That means there's some sentences I say that they are not from my eyes. They're not from my biological eyes. There comes a point in the comprehension of the nature of the absolute mind where the mind is no longer an object or a subject. And that's when that's when the unknown meets you, and there is no further teaching or teacher or anything to do. You have reached the mountain peak, and the next journey is with wings. You cannot climb the sky with feet. You must find wings, you know? And so those wings are found only, I don't want to even say non-duality too much, because everybody's been shouting that in history. You know, I mean, what can you tell the dualistic realm? You could just tell it to calm down and be non-dual a little bit. But really what it is that your thoughts right now are not just your thoughts, they are an alphabet. And when the person becomes selfless, there are intelligent currents that use your imagery as language. So imagine right now, there is a species on Earth that evolved and became a field of mind. Now that species knows we are here. So we are not the first ascendees on this planet. We are definitely not the first. There has been others. There has been before man. There has been those before man. I will call it the incognito species. So that would be my answer, Charles. I don't know how well you listened, but the idea was really that to higher dimensions we're an alphabet. To lower dimensions we are the ones using them as an alphabet. The same way we use language as an alphabet, right now we feel our language isn't alive. But I'll tell you, there's states here that you're not the only person looking through your eyes, and what's looking through your eyes is not a person. It is a presence. When you notice this, you will suddenly realize why imagination moves the way it does. You see, there's an argument of what is the content of imagination, what is the imagery in your inner realms. Then there is how that imagery is arising, and that's a uniqueness of sensitivity that every person has to master the instrument of their own intelligence. There's no other task. That means if you really wanted an instruction in this life, Ludwig van Beethoven, has given the greatest instruction. He says, don't just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. And what that implies is that instead of art, see the word life. Imagine Ludwig van Beethoven was not speaking to an artist, was speaking to just a regular human being, and he said, don't just practice your life, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. That knowledge is the inner realms, why you have it. Is it not odd to you that you have a mind that can process multiple events at the same time before you make a decision or move? Do you know? There is no certainty. There is no self-glorification. This is why I keep telling everybody in the linguistic simulation, be playful with language. There is no crown to wear here. It's a workstation. It's like we're at a construction site that the house hasn't been built, and we're acting like the house is built. You know, let us be kings and queens of a world that is advanced. Because there is no greater world. There's no greater word. The word advancement is the edge of evolution. It is speeds of continuity. Right now, you can say us speaking the way the sophistication we have with language is very big. Do you know? It's very, very fast. But to us fast. Like if you went back to your ancestors and you spoke to them, they'd think like you're an alien or something. Because the way we speak, we have so much freedom in tone development, our vocal cords, our use of it, our constant everyday getting an experience of language and whatnot. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Buddha came to an ultimate conclusion that ended suffering. There's two ways to end something. This isn't said often. Or you can say attain something. One, you don't have it, and it's something that is new, or it's something that is being remembered. I am telling you, there's something about remembering there was nothing wrong with existence. It is the most magnificent event we're privileged to be the eyes of. You know, I have done things in this life where I have felt like nothing. And there's been times where I've said some things and I felt like something. But really, there is nothing. There is nothing that remains other than you being like life is here now. That means the meaning is that the hand has not stopped drawing this masterpiece, which right now is in pieces because it has masters. Because we think people know a cosmic event. I honor mysticism, but I break it when I see language possesses a human life. You know, guys, I just made a joke right now. I just thought of it. I don't know how, but it's like somebody, it's like knock knock. Who's there? No one, you know? No one who? No one, because there is no one. There has never been an existence that has not stopped traveling. The world of form, you cannot design and motion are simultaneous. You don't notice design unless you move, unless something moves. So design and movement are like strangely linked. Because we're a creature moving in a design, so how can we not see a design to our movement? But then we see the design is being moved too, so then we're wondering about the design of the mover, and that's attributeless. That's when mysticism begins, when you realize you don't know who you are, regardless of how many years you've lived. By the way, anybody who is listening, I'm just some person, you know, in a universe of a billion trillion stars talking. As Aristotle says, it is the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting. It's the honor for truth, regardless of what the truth is. It's that the human being notices a hierarchical spectrum, and then choice begins, the journey of choice. Did you know this? That if you are not an individual, nobody can blame you. You can't go judge an infant. Why? Because the infant doesn't have a personality yet. Is not a person yet. Even if if the child is not named, you can't call it. You see, our minds are living through language and image. Our minds are living through language, but because the world has image, the image echoes into the inner realms. There was a man, they asked him, does life have purpose? You know what the guy said? They asked the guy, does life have purpose? And the guy said, no, life is the purpose. It is the purpose. We are all trying to do things for our purpose, but life is being its purpose. The purpose of existence is solved. Everybody has completed their existential purpose. That means if you just exist here, it doesn't matter if it was easy or hard or smooth or not smooth, but if you just exist, you have understood the meaning of life. Because you don't see trees cutting themselves. You don't see animals in nature biting themselves. It is only the human being that has a discretion through the additional lens of the inner realms, that man can judge himself. So we are that unique animal in nature that has found a way somehow, with the sophistication of the brain, to actually experience events timelessly. So that means right now I am looking at, like, I'm outside my porch and probably speaking too loud, but like Guys, I found the inner treasure of this talk. The inner treasure of this talk is that the human brain is a phenomena made in time, yet our memories are different times remembered. So technically, we have uh, the echo of, we can time travel into the echoes of the past, into the present. So what I'm saying is that we are this very strange biological mechanism in a changing world that has somehow found a way to compare events that have become non-local. Because right now, I'm in a location, this experience is local. It's a local experience. But in a couple seconds later, or not a couple seconds, but whenever I go end the talk and relocate, then I have become non-local to one location, but I have found myself to become local to another. So let us think that we're energy, right? So even though they say that the body dies, correct? But let us say the mind, from a Descartes mind-body dualistic kind of view, let us say the mind is watching the body from a different dimension, okay? A separate dimension irrelevant to what matter does. Now, if there was a witness of matter, you would see the biological body break, correct? Death is like the biological body breaking. But in the law of thermodynamics, first law of thermodynamics, they say energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can change from one form to another. So what that means is the process of death is an attention to the breaking down of form, and if there's a watcher, that form breaks down to the energy that cannot be created or destroyed. So there is no such thing as death, but there is phoenixhood. We are living our lives like phoenixes. Every time I go to sleep, I'm like, oh, the phoenix I was that day is turning into ashes. And when I wake up in the morning, the immortal egg has opened towards the eternal gaze. So this is the fascinating point, guys. I'll reemphasize that we are creatures in time, but our intelligence is working with multiple events in time. Even the person considering their future, considering their past. So what I'm trying to say is that the lesser dimensions are finding a way to notice themselves in higher dimensions. Like a caterpillar goes into a metamorphosis and becomes a butterfly, the caterpillar has a two-dimensional access. But then has two-dimensional mobility. Then when it becomes a butterfly, it can fly anywhere in the space. So I feel there's an evolution of consciousness from a Cartesian fashion, in a Cartesian fashion, that is experiencing. I wouldn't be surprised that this is like a sandbox for higher dimensions, this plane. So what I'm trying to say is that at the edge of death, the idea of death is dying too. So there is no self. The watcher is not an idea. Nothing in this cosmos has said intelligence has to be 100% exactly fit into language. You know, there's no perfect clothing on this earth. And there's no way a person can perfectly clothe their mind in language. The less your hands are full, the more you can hold. Do you know what I mean? That means in this life, knowledge is not about actually how much you know. It's about how much you notice the unknown, where the known is moving. And then design, like, you know what it is? It's as if, like, imagine like your siblings were in another galaxy, siblings that you didn't know about, and these siblings were flying to come and assist you. It would be a sort of galactic balance where we will be wise and ready for extraterrestrial contact when we see the word extraterrestrial and terrestrial as yin and yang. That is when it will happen. When we are not overwhelmed or underwhelmed. Imagine aliens come down and they're all jello, and we're like, no way, we can't shake hands with jello to officially, you know. What it means to be human, really, I mean, like this, like if you're any person who is going through the human experience, any type of attention in the realm that's going through any sort of human experience, I can tell you we're thoughts today and worlds tomorrow. Materialistically, your body returns to the realm. Immaterialistically, your body was never in the realm because it's immaterial. So technically, whatever happens at the end of this life, you kiss this earth goodbye. You salute the generals of the future generations and you leave. Because the hardest challenge is the dismissal of something you have been building your whole life, yet there is a burden. There is a hidden burden. There is a hidden burden to unconsciously living. You feel you did not see, but you entered the room. It's like you walked past an art gallery. As far as I'm concerned, we're all certain genetical coding. Like it's geometrical to me. I think geometry is the code of existence and experience. Geometry is the ultimate bridge between existence and experience. We don't realize it. We don't realize how much the future generations are going to use geometry in ways we cannot even notice. Right now, they're going to look at us like pioneers, you know, like the early settlers, where look at these guys, they were only being taught geometry in math class. They hadn't realized they were in a geometrical universe. That you should not fear life. You should fear not living. Because that has to do with how much your free will trusts the realm to see how much the will expands. There's moments where the person cannot barricade the door. Imagine like you were a person and a king. Usually in when they show series like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, people are identifying with the main characters. But imagine you were just some dude in one of those villages where the kingdom was under siege, and you were maybe like a baker, like you have no war experience, but you saw people needed help to hold the barricades of the gate of the kingdom, and you would run. Because it is how far, you know, how much you care for the present suggests how far you see in the future. Or how much you want to even see something in the future, you see? It's very easy. There's some nights I've had where, I mean, not, it's been years I haven't been disturbed by my inner realms, I'll be honest. Like I share them, but I haven't been disturbed by my inner realms. You see, you only get disturbed if you're doing the wrong thing. Imagine you're like a little kid who's gone into a corporate environment and just dancing around, and people in the corporate environment's like, whose kid is this? What is this? We're trying to work here. You know, so that's the thing about this dimension, that it is true, there is love, there's playfulness, but there is also the waves of purpose, a sort of teleological inner vision. Sorry, not inner. I wanted to say the word hidden. Hidden vision. That means there you have known intentions and you have unknown intentions, and they're okay. I have known, me personally, I have known desires and unknown desires. The known desires are shaped. The unknown desires are just me waiting and to see how the universe moves. You think says, wouldn't the baker want to feed the troops? No, the baker has to run to the priority of the event. That means just because like the person is a baker, it doesn't mean you got to bake your whole life. It just means that you look at the moment, you put yourself to the side, the idea of yourself, and you take a good look at your world. And then you get a new evaluation, sort of new value system. And then pretty much it's the call of the event. You have a certain life purpose, and then there's life's purpose before you were born. There's something you are interpreting from the landscape, and there's something the landscape knows that we don't. Because I sit here and I speak, but let me tell you, I have a commander. My commanders are the future generations. These talks are, I'm pretty much, you know what it is? It's like, imagine the world became so incredible in the future, and you were a time traveler that wanted to just come back to see how the world became incredible. It feels like that living here. It feels like that once we trust life, it opens. Its dimensions open. And that's the thing about practice. I am telling you, whoever is listening to me, this is at me as a human being, as much as I've understood. I am telling you the peak. I am telling you what I don't have children, but if I did, what I would tell them. The spotless truth of my eyes. That those who see the unknown first, they are the ones who can truly know the world. The future generations are how far our eyes will roar in the void. The sight of man is precious. And in states of biological fragility, we're wasting our lives with labor as if we don't have minds, you know? I think it's hilarious. People say you lose your mind, you find your mind in certain cultures. In certain cultures, you lose your mind. But let me tell you something hilarious. There is no finding or losing. There is just your eyes are open. They are open. For non-existence is eternity's permission slip. It is eternity's golden ticket. That eternity requires the temporal to be eternal, and the temporal requires to journey through the eternal, you know. The secret to mastering any art form. I mean, Beethoven pretty much like hit a home run, but I'll tell you something from my eyes. It's endurance, endless endurance. As if time did not bother you. How many things would you try if you didn't have linear time behind your like subconscious context? As a context to the moment, how many things would you just look for the first time and try? You see, and practice means you are endlessly attempting to see new dimensions of a certain way. It doesn't matter how much the person fixes themselves when the world is breaking. You know, all that Mr. Within asks from anybody who hears this in this species. Learn to walk in the void eternally. For in the last movement of the temporary, the egg shall either break from the outside or it shall break from the inside. That what is looking from within your eyes was never a thought. And that's when thoughts, where they would say in yoga, um, Hal, when I say breaking, I was being poetic. I meant changing. Technically, change is breaking. Technically, your body has been breaking itself and rebuilding itself. That means everything in a long enough time span stops existing. If it has content that breaks, if it doesn't have content to break, if there is an invisible seer to the visible sight, then fear is just the language of this dimension and the ignorance of the courage of another. Guys, remember, before everything you learned, you are a quiet and silent part of this universal sector. We have emerged as individual conscious linguistic-based entities, acoustic-based entities, like evolution just wanted to sing. Because what can you do with the void? You can avoid it, but you'll feel you're missing out. You're not seeing something from the grand picture. Or you can accept it, and maybe upon acceptance, the eyes open different. Anyways, let me see what else I can say about the title before I end off. By the way, anybody in the chat section who has questions, feel free to share. I will relocate after the end of the talk to attend the Discord sessions. You know, there are questions that come from outside the person, and there are questions that come from within the person. Life will only become, you will only have questions, actually, if you feel you don't know. If a person feels they know, then they don't need to ask, because they're riding the waves of the moment, technically. We are just energetic bursts of effort. That's all that it has been. Reality can be seen very binary. Energy concentrated, energy not concentrated. Energy concentrated, focused, energy not focused. There's something I learned from meditation that revolutionized my concentration, by the way. It's called single pointedness of mind, where you're trying to find a single point of how the attention is being. So that means you can practice this anywhere you are. Just look at an object and try to just see the object. You know, the poet Rumi says you cannot keep your hand, you cannot keep it in an intense fist formation for too long, and you cannot just stretch it out for too long. Your hand will get paralyzed. And us wanting something in this life to just be in one way is the ignorance of the law of balance. That means whatever the laws of nature are, the law of balance precedes them, because there was something balanced enough to be able to perceive. The poet Rumi says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I became an animal. I died as an animal. Sorry, he says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. I shall, and then he says, when was I less by dying? Sorry, he says, why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more to soar. I shall die once more as man, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has conceived. So evolution is moving towards the inconceivable, and there's no point of freaking out. It's just like the void has a soul, which is novelty. And if you look at that quote where he says, I shall die as man, Rumi said this 700 years ago, the Sufi mystic. And the archetype of the angel, the whole point of it is that it doesn't have free will. Angels, their will is the divine will. Just the archetype, the imagery, how it's been shared in this world. So Rumi is saying there has been an evolution of an unknown viewer through the mineral kingdom into the plant kingdom, into the animal kingdom, into the human kingdom. And from the human kingdom, where free will, if we are at the peak experience of free will, we will move and transition into the divine will. That's how Rumi is seeing it in this metaphysics. That means right now we're a mind that moves ourselves. On the other side of the whale, we will be a world that is moving selves. One day you will realize that there was no day, there was no night, and your intuition were your eyes before your eyes. And you'll be like, no way, Mr.Within said something about this. So that's the point. That means even from divine will, even from godhood or that concept of heaven or ultimate state or whatever, you move on to the inconceivable, that which is not in the realm of conception, which this whole plane of existence is based on, my dear listeners. So be like Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj, where he says, first the I am myself comes, then the I am myself goes, and the I am all comes. Then the I am all goes, and the I am comes. Then the I am, in the I am, all goals and purposes have been fulfilled, for nature is. And we are in the most incredible station of this cosmos, which I think for somehow we can map for the advanced communicators. We are at the brink, at the edge. We are at the completion of individual existence. This plane of existence is a station where you pilot into collective beinghood. So do not fear your eyes, for the world is inside them. And with the world inside your eyes, you are the power of the cosmos before it could glow into language or meaning. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj was this cigarette salesman, to poor tobacco salesman in India, this really simple, like very poor life, you know? And in Indian culture, of course, they have a mystical context to their culture, which is incredible. And many Eastern cultures do, of course. But they have this notion that there are liberated beings walking the earth. And so pretty much Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, one day, one of his market friends comes up to him and it's like, hey, let's go see this enlightened guy, this guru. And they go see this guru who's just placed the mat and is sitting in the middle of the market, you know? And so they go and they sit down and they talk to this guy, and the guru looks at Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, this man who is pretty much, he's been pushed towards the humble his whole life due to his conditions that the luxurious will think it's unfortunate. But it is one of those situations where the guy looks at him, the guru, and just looks at Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj as if he's reading he's listening to his soul from his eyes, and he says to Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, study yourself every moment of your life. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj goes back, and to his surprise, a week later, he listens to the advice of the guy, but the guru, passes away a week from that point. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, in his lunch break, anywhere, any moment of his life, he was looking at what his life is. And this man attained a clarity where he has this other quote where he says, when I see that I am nothing. Sorry, let me see if I got it right. Yeah, he says, when I see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I see that I am everything, that is love. And in between, my life moves. My life moves. That means he is not an individual that's suffering or in some heaven of joy. He has noticed that attention is oscillating between the extremes. That we're neither chaotic people, we're neither ordered. It's just that the bird has two wings to be able to fly. So, Hal, in the chat section, you say, I just read your comment, you say, Step Truth, say there's beings around which have a common soul, for me it is biology. Think of it this way. What if you, so don't use the word soul if you're perceiving biology, Hal. Let me tell you why. Because it's as if from the biological standpoint, metaphysics at best can mean you're an antenna that is picking up signals, you know, you're picking up signals. Secular metaphysics is pretty much antenna picking up unknown signals. But of course, yogic metaphysics, Vedic metaphysics, which has this ancient glory, it's like this kingdom that is shining from from antiquity, where its light has even echoed this far. I'm just saying the point that nature is, regardless of what we do. So smile at the sunrise of your life for every moment as it's done. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm going to relocate, and I'll meet you in the School of Athens. I'll share the Discord link here. And yeah, in this episode, my effort was to just really say that we are containing reality through imagination gets a permission to change, and imagination needs reality to be able to be that change, to be able to bounce off something. And thanks everyone who contributed to the chat section. You guys are your comments are going to be etched in the history of this talk. You know. So guys, I gotta relocate. I'm outside, so I'll see you in the School of Athens, but I'll keep the stream on so people can have access to the link. Blessings.